My name is Tucker, and I work here at Cost Tailored. Our purpose here is to shine our light, and today we get to shine our light on one of the kaaspass leaders within the kaaspass community. His name is Fawad, and he is the plant manager over at Saand, one of our community members. I had a really fun time interviewing Fawad, even though this was not new to me because I was his coach for a few months, and I currently coach him. But it was really cool to see him share something near and dear to his heart, something that's he's been working on in his own business, and share all of the learnings that he's had. So I hope you enjoy this clip. And if you want to inquire more about kaaspass, go to truthbitpoll.com. You'll find out all there is to know about kaaspass. All right, thanks everyone. All right, let's get this thing kicked off. So welcome everyone. Today is all about Fawad and his learning journey, and celebrating the things that he's been learning as his coach. It's been really cool to see Fawad here really take the Kata approach and make it his own, and improve some of the processes he's been working on. So yeah, today we're going to be focusing on his first kata, which has actually been completed, and we're on to the second kata. We might dip into the second kata as well because he's been learning since we put this event on the calendar about a month ago. So since there's a lot of people from different companies, we have people from Saand and Nordstrom and a former intern in Brenna. If you could drop into the chat your name and organization and role, that'd be helpful in case I missed any other organization. So yeah, that's what we're going to be focusing on, is his first kata and the learnings from that. And so like we've done with a few, like Liz's and Jenna's and Andrew's from Saand before, we're basically I'm going to interview Fawad for about 15-20 minutes. I have some interview questions, and then if you have any questions throughout listening to Fawad, dump in the chat. If I see a question that's a good segue, I might take it or save it for later. So that's kind of the format of how we'll do this. So yeah, maybe Fawad, we can start with you. Introduce yourself, and yeah, tell us a little bit about yourself before we get into kind of what we're going to be looking at.
Okay, so briefly, my name is Fawad R. I work with Saand. People often call me a dumb production guy, and I'm also known for that. My work title is plant manager, and I've been in the glass business for over 20 years now. I think this year I celebrated my 20 years with the company.
Awesome, really cool. And what do you like to do for fun? So we can kind of take you, Fawad, outside of work. What does Fawad do outside of work?
I love cars, and when I was young, before all the strict laws came in, I used to enjoy a lot. I can't speed anymore, therefore, I have an old car, 1995 Camaro. So, and every time I have a free time, I do spend time on it, just do foolish repairs and spend money foolishly on it. And when I really need to vent out, I go to gym. And that's all. That's the story of an old man.
There you go. Awesome. Thank you, Fawad. So Fawad's first kata, and maybe this is where you could share your screen, yeah. Fawad. Let's get into what problem you're trying to solve and how do you know it was a problem.
All right. So the Rollercoater is one of our paint line, and for a time it was just underperforming. This Rollercoater has so much business potential in the local market that we have seen an increased demand over the course of several months. So as I said, that from the process and people side, the area was underperforming, and this was an opportunity for us to not to attract more business, also to improve the morale of the people internally and be able to improve the efficiency at the same time, so we can produce more and sell more.
Awesome. And for those that don't know what a Rollercoater is, like me before this kata was underway, what is a Rollercoater and kind of what does it do? What's the product it makes?
It's a process for epoxy application, a paint application, which does the back painting, goes to the interior buildings. So it's a single coat, like a roller. You deploy the paints on the top, and it just kind of go over the glass as it passes through, and then there's a heating element that goes through. So yeah, so it offers different colors, so many varieties that we have there that we offer for the internal building. So
awesome. And before we get into like the numbers, let's stick on the challenge a little bit longer. So organized by order and color. So you and it's spelled, the right way if you know what I mean. Um, what is what is the I guess what was the problem you're trying to solve, or what were you noticing that made you think like this would be a good kata to focus on? What was happening in the process?
Yeah, so the process side of it, it was clear to us that painting is this typical line is a loss process. So this loss process was not actually pulling the work. The work was pushed to them. And there were times that they will have too much inventory, and there were times they will have no inventory at all. So the balance of the inventory was not there. Demand of the Rollercoater itself and the concept that this line is based on was not very clear to our internal customers and internal departments also. Um, for a long period of time, their shift starts at 6 a.m. and you will not see any production on the board during the first hour. Absolutely zero. Uh, Changeovers are a part of this process. Especially when we're going from a dark color to very light color, it takes 45 minutes to 50 minutes to change, and it has paint mixing, and you run your test samples, you set up your line, and all that takes that time. So if you have multiple color schedules in the shift, it can impact the overall throughput and the efficiency of it. What was really happening and affecting the performance of the process was that, as I said, this process is designed to run a batch. So if you have a color for them and then they run all day, it can be really productive. But you have multiple colors, different orders mixed for them, then they cannot process that product just the way this line is designed. So their demand was to give me the glass or order based organized by orders or colors so I can be productive. So that was not happening. So they were doing at 6 a.m. and they will not have the glass that was scheduled to run for them. That was a problem for them. So they will come and they will sort and organize the WIP that was sitting pushed to them by the color they wanted to run. And that would take sometimes 3 to 4 hours on a typical day to sort. So their shift is scheduled for 7.5 hours, and 46% of the time they will just do the sorting and organizing before we could get into production.
One of the things that really struck me when I actually got to visit our friends over in Toronto area at Saand last May was Fawad made a joke, but it wasn't I don't know, it wasn't a very funny joke. Basically, that people at Saand oftentimes are professional glass like sorters or hunters, where their current system at the time there was a lot of searching and looking around for things um, and for those of you that haven't been to their production, the shop floor and seen their work, it's like basically imagine a bunch of panes of glass, like all like in like a production facility, and they look very similar from like an untrained eye. Like it's like looking for a needle in the haystack. So it can be really challenging, especially if you're trying to maximize for the changeover, which is taking 45, 60 minutes to change over. So really good. What else did you notice when you first discovered the problem?
Uh, on the people side, I would love to mention this, that there was definitely lack of understanding and the connection was not built between the departments. As I said, the work was being pushed to them instead of based on the demand what was being pulled. So there was a high level of frustrated on the employees because they were pressured to produce results and hit their hourly or daily targets, and they were unable to do it. So that caused a lot of frustration at their end. And 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 all the sorting that they were doing for 2 3 hours, 46% of the shift of the time, it caused a lot of stress on their body because now they're moving part from one card to another card just to organize it. All this extra handling, causing stress on their body. Maybe the products is being defected now because now you'll be just slapping it from one side to another side just to get to the right one. So there was high level of frustration at their end, and they were actually asking for some help to fix the process for them. And this is how we got into it.
That's really good. Um, okay, let's get into the numbers. So what was the throughput? So 4,000 was the challenge of what we were hoping to get to. What was the starting condition, the numbers where we were when we first started looking at this process?
So first started actually the observation was made at the floor on the floor live, and the first hour, as expected, was always 0. And the second hour they might creep up a little bit to 100 square feet. When we started, the scheduler was scheduling 300 square feet an hour for them to produce in a shift. So that was their target. This is how she was scheduling. But when we started, they were actually doing 250 square feet in 3 hours.
Yeah, and what
So
about for the daily total?
so this was when we started. This is the data of the month of June that we collected. There was only one day that they were over 3,000, and that was actually scheduled for them. But this is I know average is not the right word in Kata, but they were actually very low. 46. They were running the lines with a 53% of the scheduled efficiency. So Melanie, who's our planner, was planning to run the line with 85%, and they were at 53% when we started.
Really good. So let's talk about some experience you ran, and what did you learn from those? So what were some of like the key experiments that you ran, and maybe some things you learned from those?
Yeah, so number one was like one thing that really highlighted in front of us was, why can we produce in the first hour? Why is always 0? So it's like a marathon. If you don't start well, you cannot finish well. So for us to win the marathon, we had to start well and gain back the lost capacity for the first hour. And then when we did the observations, that it was they needed the 45 minutes for a legitimate reason. Like I said, paint preparation, they need run their test samples, set up your oven, washing machine, and all that. So that time was legitimate, that was required, but it was not scheduled into their schedule. So to gain back that lost capacity, we actually scheduled. So that was the experiment. The learning from is that we have to gain back that capacity by scheduling that extra 45 minutes into the work schedule. So make sure that they have that time to prep their line before they get in.
Yeah, this was actually one of the first experiments we ran against this obstacle about, taking an hour. The first hour, basically, everyone's like, all right, ready, let's go do our, start our day. And then most of the other teams can start producing right away. This team was having to do their maintenance and getting things ready. So, what, I guess, what was the experiment that you did? You had them come in early, or what was the
Yeah,
experiment in learning there?
so knowing the fact that extra 45 minutes are required and their shift starts at 6 a.m., we scheduled extra 45 minutes where the operators were asked to come in early and do their prep work and the line preparation. So ensure that line is ready right after the team huddle meeting that happens at 6 a.m. So 6:15, they're ready to start. So that was our strategy, learning to gain that capacity back for the first hour.
Yeah, really good. Okay, let's talk about another experiment. What else did you do?
The other experience, this is when I started Kata, and I was very much convinced that their last supplier is Tempering Line, and Tempering Line is not treating them like an external customers. Means they are pushing all the inventory to them. It's not organized by color. It's not organized by order. Why can they treat them like a customer? But I think that was not the case. We started. So Tempering Line was just a symptom. The root cause was somewhere else. So root cause was right at the beginning. So when we got all the internal departments involved in the Kata, and we were talking to tempering guys, and tempering guys were telling me, you know what, this is how I received the product from the seaming line. And we go to seaming line. I say, okay, what are you doing? So they're saying, this is how I'm receiving from the cutting table. Cutting table is the start point where everything starts in the plant. And then cutting said, why are you doing it? Well, this is how this is how it's been scheduled to me. So this is how, as we were taking these steps from internal customers, actually led to, we need to start with the planning department. Are we planning the way this system is designed to pull? So this is when Melanie came into play and she got involved. There were times that, the capacity at that time was set to 2,500 square feet an hour, and we were overscheduling them by 4,000 square feet a day. And that was nobody's fault. It was just the understanding of the flow, and knowledge was not evident at that point. So learning from it was the discussions that we started to have. So Melanie actually has started to come down on the floor, and she started to track her batches from beginning to the end. So how the batch is traveling from one point to the last point, and she was spending a lot of time on it. And she started to spend time on the flow. What is the daily capacity of the spandrel line Rollercoater? How much can they pull in a day? And what happens when I overschedule? So she came on a live and the plant was overscheduled, especially this line, and it was a chaos at the front of the line, like whip was just jammed into it. So she saw that. So and also uh, the dialogues that started to happen on a daily basis really gave us the fruit. And the dialogues were happening between the scheduler, the production manager, and the supervisor every single day, and it's happening to the date. They're meeting for 5 to 7 minutes on the floor, and they're talking, how was your day today? What can I do to make your day better tomorrow? And what do you need from me? And that's it. And they talk about it. We were not having that communication cycle was not open before until we got into this.
And some underlying principles that I observed for this as your coach was two things. One, walking the problem to find the root. And oftentimes, I like what you said. Oftentimes, a problem is caused in one area, felt in another. So, for those that have been in a pipe sim before, which is many on the call, someone at the end of the line feels more like spot 5, where it's just like all of a sudden there's just this log jam that they're having to deal with, but it was actually caused upstream by scheduling it, not by color, not by a certain sequence in cutting. And then this, which brings me to my second point of the like principles behind this is the power of going to the gemba and like having Melanie, who's the scheduler, spending more time on the shop floor to be able to understand what impact her like the schedule has on the actual team doing the work, and connecting those two was really cool to hear, because that's something that's like a very important like lean concept that was cool to see like that as an experiment, and then the power that came with that. So really cool. And then let's do the third experiment that you have want to share.
Okay, this one right here, as it's a continuation from it, but it was a critical experiment for me to learn that plan versus actual. As I said, we were actually releasing the batches like 3, 4, 5 different colors mixed together for a day, and not knowing the fact that this line cannot produce more than 2 colors in a singular shift. Otherwise, it can impact the efficiency of the line. So when all these gamma walks were happening, then we were auditing when we are again keeping the material yield, the glass yield in mind. You don't want to create a batch for a color and then throw maybe 50% of the glass in garbage. Keep that 85%, 90% higher material gain back number in the mind. So Melanie started to create batch based on how much they can produce in a day, based on color and an order, and she was releasing them, and they were actually monitoring it from point A to the end, how that flows. So we did that for 3 weeks, and based on that, I think we were able to come up with a system where the plan batches were released, organized by order and color, without compromising on the yield. And there were times that line was a bit under schedule, but and there were times they were a little bit over scheduled, but not by far. The 3,000 was the number that was given to the planner. But when the glass was started to arrive in the right form and shape, which is organized by order and color, the line was able to pull. So it means they minimized the sorting, organizing, all that stuff that they were doing at the beginning of the shift. The goal was to gain back the extra 46% of the efficiency, right? And we were able to gain that before we ended this.
Not to mention more or less changeovers too, with having it be organized by scheduling it by the colors. So really cool. So let's talk about
even though just to add to that, even the changeover was introduced there, this was a number that we were trying to gain 500 square feet an hour. So if the loader is less than 500 square feet, we understand that. If the order is larger than 500 square feet, then you can have 3 changeovers in a day, but as long as you're maintaining 500 square feet an hour plus 45 minutes changeover.
Yeah, that's a good point. Let's get on to the impact. So what was the impact of this Kata? So like either financially or operationally, square footage wise, I think you have some numbers prepared.
Yeah, so absolutely. So this is how we started. As you can see, this chart is actually, I kept it, it's near dear to my heart. This is how we started, from 0 and in 3 hours we only produced 250 square feet. This was the number of the month of August. As we were making changes, you can tell they were well below 3,000 square feet. Not even one single day they were above that. Then with the improvements, this was the impact. I hope you guys can see clearly. The Rollercoater right underneath in a straight column is the productivity displaying by hour. So they actually did in 7.5 hours, 3,500 square feet by maintaining 500 square feet an hour of throughput, producing 311 square feet in the first hour from 0 to 311. So that was a gain back capacity and maintaining that momentum. And you can see the highs here throughout the day. And actually, what's happening today? This was happening today. I took that picture from our production stat an hour and a half ago, and then this is the same trend. So they still had 2 hours left in the shift. They were maintaining the pace of 500, average of 500 square feet an hour, producing 260 square feet in the first hour from 0 to 260, and then 500, 3, 857, and they were still going.
Really cool. And one of the things that I want to mention, just because for those of you that know that the challenge is 4,000 and we didn't get to that, one of the things we actually learned is the reason why we pivoted to a different kata was not that we hit the 4,000 mark, but it was because there wasn't enough sales volume to justify getting to that 4,000. So we would have been like overproducing and basically like we're outpacing the actual customer demand, basically. So that's why we switched to a different kata for now. Obviously, we're still tracking it, like what Fawad just shared. Okay, the financial.
This is
yes,
the financial impact. So when we started, so this is daily production of the day. So it's in dollars. So 7.5 hours, we were producing $14,000 of the inventory. And with the improvements today, they have over, they're doing 24,500, $10,000 increase in a day.
Really cool. And thank you, Aaron Franklin, for the assist with the financial side of things. So, okay, last question before we open it up. What did you learn about Kata through the process, but also what did you learn about yourself through the process? So whichever one you want to go with first, go for it.
The Kata, when I was first introduced, when Julie and Leslie, they were actually doing it, and they were miles ahead of me, and I actually did spend 1 month, I think, by observing how Julie and Leslie, they were managing it, and I couldn't understand. My first perception about Kata is it's too slow. It's not gonna work. I think I can get a lot of stuff done in 1 day by doing myself. But actually, as I spent, and this is how I started. I wanted to get things done like today. Kata is all about small steps, taking those small steps and having that some sort of assumption in your head what this process looks like, and you go to the process and there is some sort of expectations from it, and then you actually go there live and you see what happens. You can interview people, you can ask people the questions, keeping that you know everything about the process, keep that knowledge aside because you're just observing and asking question, and then learn something from it, like what did the and the takeaway, and that you can apply maybe if to the next day. So that was Kata was like all baby steps, small steps, one obstacle at a time, and you just go there as a neutral person and you observe and you ask a lot of questions, and I think it's and it was actually very rewarding. As I said, at the end of the day, when we finish with these are the numbers for the production guys. When the machines are running and they're hitting the numbers and safely, and they're maintaining the quality throughput, it's a good day for, and it keeps the production guy happy, and that's what it is. On the business side of it, people are a lot happier today. Their morale is up. They're not working. They're working smarter, not harder, because we have fixed the process for them. They are receiving the glass the way the process is designed, and the financial impact in the business.
And what about yourself? What about some self-reflections? What did you learn about yourself? How you approach things in normal non-kata work, or even with this kata?
So my personality is lacking patience. I don't have one. my kids will tell you the same thing, and they don't understand, but I think that's how I am. But with Kata, I struggled a little bit at the beginning, but it's actually did teach me the patience. Like I said, one step at a time, and take your time, and it's gonna come eventually one day with a big reward. So don't rush yourself. Self-discipline and commitment. Like it teaches you the self-discipline, and you gotta be committed to it. You have to do this every single day. You need to show up at the area, and you need to observe. And that self-discipline came from this tool. And the last one, which is also was very critical to me, is the involvement of the business partners. You involve a lot of people. You talk to a lot of people. You ask for their feedback, and often people are here to do their good job, but sometimes they are not made aware. What is the demand of the next area? What can I do to help improve that? So when we were reaching out to those people, as I shared the example from tamping line to seaming line to cutting, then Melanie, the planner, got involved. And all these guys are meeting on a daily basis every single day. And they actually had a lot of valuable suggestions and solutions to help bring that process stability back.
Awesome. Okay, we'll open up for questions. You can either chat it in or unmute and ask away. You can go ahead and stop sharing your screen for a minute. Actually, I can just kick you off. There you go. Anyone have any questions, things you're curious about, want to know more about? Now's your time.
Hi, I'm gonna break the ice. My name is Estelle. I work with Nordstrom in the Merch AP Vendor Relations Department. And I noticed one of your figures were in the 800 range after you implemented the changes for the production in an hour. What was your highest production in an hour prior to the changes?
So higher production, as you can see, I'm not sharing it. It was 250 was the highest number that we were saying before we made the changes. So our goal was, so like I said, my planner was planning to run this line with 300 square feet an hour. That was the expectation when we started. But after the improvements and that were made to the process and the people side of it, we are now scheduling to 500 square feet an hour. It could be a little bit over or under, but at least there will be time that they're running some high square feet run where you will, and I'm seeing that today, they're getting 700, 800 square feet an hour. And there will be an hour when they will do 300 square feet. But at the end of the day, if you average it out, if they are at 3,500 square feet, averaging 500 square feet an hour, it's a successful day.
Good question. Estelle, thank you. Any further questions?
People are going easy on me. I like it.
I know, right? Yeah. Any other softballs or hardballs?
I think I have a softball for you, Fawad. So I noticed at the beginning, you had your data points. You actually it seems like in a way you started your process by creating a visualization of where you were at that time before you started the kata, right?
Right.
And there was one data point there. I noticed it because you pointed out it was like one day where it was like 3,000 and square feet. Thank you. And the rest of were just way down in the 500s maybe. So it was like really accentuated. And I'm just curious, do you have an understanding of what happened on that day in particular where production was just almost as high as you have it now?
Yeah, it was just that one lucky day in the entire month when that happened, and day before they were actually maintain the 20% the efficiency of what was scheduled to them. So a lot of sorting and organizing happened prior to that day, and so they were able to hit that number. And that was also means they organized themselves by order and color based on the demand of the process. So when they did that, the following day they were able to hit that number, and that was also a lesson learned from us that I think this is where the mission statement came into play, that, you know, if my line is able to produce 4,000 square feet a day by having and the glass organized by order and color. If we do that, then we can see more of the 3,000 day and in future. If I answer your question right.
Yeah, you did, but I'll disagree with you slightly because in a friendly way, just because you said it was a lucky day, but it was more than luck because there was actually work done prior to that day to help set them up for having a successful day, right? There was a change in behavior.
Right.
You know what I mean?
No, I get it, but
But it was just lucky that they did.
No, I mean, you're right in a way, you know, right in a way, but, you know, we compromise the production prior to that in order to achieve. So in 2 days, actually, we only did 3,000 square feet. Prior to that, they only did like 500. So instead of producing 3,000 square feet that day, they only did 500 because they were doing the non-value added and they were trying to fix someone else's problem. You know,
I see.
Yeah.
process was not in place. So
I
at the end of the day, it was not a gain.
It was a workaround, but
Yeah.
at the same time, like as your coach, I remember that day very fondly because I was like, oh, it's actually kind of possible to like break through this ceiling that we had, because if they had the work already sorted by the work that they need to do, and all they do is pull the work and put in the machine, then 3,000, 4,000 is pretty likely or possible. So you're right. It wasn't luck because there was a reason, but it was not the reason, not a sustainable like habitual
Gotcha.
process.
They couldn't do that every day. You know, that was just one day.
Yeah, but there were learnings from that could be taken forward, and you did take forward.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank
you, Jackie.
I'd be curious to hear from the rest of the Saand team.
I was
two things.
Just gonna send it over there. Let's go for it.
What are your outside observations of the changes that were made, or maybe the effects that it's had on your portion of the business? And what changes have you seen at Fawad?
I was actually going to ask Fawad a question first before I'll answer that too. But Fawad, now hopefully this isn't softball. How much time would you spend in a day working on Kata? Because like that's one of the biggest learnings I had going into Kata was the time spent.
Yeah, so my first Kata, I mean, because we're concentrating on our process, but at the beginning, when I started, I was allocating an hour of my day into it. But after a few days, I did realize that 1 hour is not enough, because as I was reaching out and involving people from different departments and trying to dig into the information that was non-known to us, actually did require a lot of commitment. There were times it would take 2 to 3 days. There were times that I was standing there just observing the paint mixing process for 45 minutes, and then so I think it all varies. But at the end of the day, is that it's the commitment. So if you selecting an obstacle and you're going after it, it could take an hour, 2 hours, but it's all about. I don't have an average number. Like my recut process right now, that the second kata I'm doing, and there were weeks that I was spending more than 3 hours a day just because of the scale of that kata, right?
Yeah, and a caveat on that before we get to the question that I was asked, is Fawad every single day, except for there's been like 2 or 3 days where machines are down and there's like it's like a not literal fire, but like a big problem he has to jump into. He's come prepared with a reflection on the last step, and and writing down his learnings, and like he's been very disciplined. So like it has not been like it has been clear that he's been disciplined, made it a priority to Fawad and Julie's point. Okay, on to the heartwarming question that I was asked. Who'd like to share? Go for it, Julie.
I would say, it started off doing kata with Leslie and myself, and we started inviting other people to kind of join and watch the kata, which actually was really good, because then Fawad went off and started his own kata. And I've found that, yeah, he's definitely like, he's admitted, he's shoot first, figure it out later. I think through going through this process, he's become a cheerleader of Kata. He believes in it. He's excited about it. It makes me really, excited to talk to him about it because it brings different departments together, because we're all speaking the same language and we're all doing Kata, and we're understanding where each other is in the process. And we've seen the sustainability in this rather than making a change and seeing if it's going to fix and moving on to something else, because there is a million things coming at you. And so I've seen the sustainability in this.
Really cool. Adam, are you there? You can shed some light. I was in the car.
Sorry, I actually just pulled over. Yeah, I think two things jump out at me three is what kind of echoing on what Julie said about our internal process of learning, and we had Julie, Leslie, a few other people, Aaron, that worked in Kata before, and as we invited more people into the team to observe, it's clearly starting to take root. The biggest thing that's most exciting for me is just seeing how honestly happy and excited Fawad is. He beams about it, and it's infectious. It's exciting. When you're in a plant a lot of the day, there's just times where it's bad news or trouble, and to have people excited and engaged and looking forward to their work and working with people is amazing. And just it's a big, scary kind of technical problem with in a potentially unsafe work environment, and most of the work was with people and engaging them and supporting them and training them, and it's solving technical problems by throwing money at those solutions or looking for like a technology answer is certainly something. But most of the work I observed was Fawad engaging his team and bringing in bigger parts of the organization, and I think that's why it's been so exciting for him and exciting for me to watch him and everyone around it, everyone that he's touched with his Kata grow.
I have one. So I've been coaching with Julie and Les and part of the other team. So Fawad's work has really, I think, infected some of the things that we're doing on the things we're doing on. So there's this knock-on effect of learning that he has, and even the energy for it that has had a positive impact on that. My question though, Fawad, is what was the biggest surprise along the way? What is the biggest surprise looking back now? Anything come to mind?
Yeah, I can speak to the process side, Jeff. The biggest surprise that I'm going to take myself an example. I thought I knew everything about this process from beginning to the end. I'm the expert. And as I got into it and dug into it on a daily basis, I actually surprised myself. Like there's so much learning to do. There's still so much learning to do. And I actually call myself dumb. That's why I call myself dumb production manager, because that's the perception that I was able to break with the help of this tool, by learning something different every single day from the process, from the people who are engaged and involved.
Really great, thank you. And to be clear, you guys have an awesome shop. We didn't come into a factory and go, these guys don't know what they're doing. So most people coming through this factory would see awesomeness. So yeah, really good. Thanks for sharing. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. With that, we're at time. Thank you so much for attending today. Thank you, Fawad. Give it up for Fawad with your, the ASL. A round of applause. Thank you for sharing your story, what you've learned. And I'll put it into the chat. There's obviously future events coming up all the time. The next one is on gratitude because it's of Thanksgiving. I thought that was a good time to maybe talk about the importance of gratitude, being thankful, and things like that. If you are interested in learning more about Kata, if this is like the first time and you had to maybe on your second screen Google what the heck is Kata, feel free to let me know if you want to join. We have a a class that we run to kind of intro to Kata. If you'd like to join, just email me, let me know that you're interested, and we'll get a cohort spun up and continue learning there. In the meantime, if you have any other questions or want to chat about anything or have an improvement you want to share with the rest of the community, let me know. With that, have a good rest of your week, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Take care.
Thank you, Fawad.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.
Everyone.